What were the dumbest lies you believed when you were a kid? Lost my stuffed animal, a white dog, in the airport in Miami when I was 5. It was my favorite and I was really sad about it. A few weeks later my mom presented me with a brown dog that otherwise looked exactly like the white one had lost. She said the workers at the airport had found it and mailed it to us, but he got a tan because he was in Florida. Bought it hook, line and sinker for a few years. Tan dog is now my son's and has a big fan smile. Our neighbor's son has autism, and he had a stuffed alligator that was pink and yellow. He carried it with him everywhere, for years. It would get torn, and they'd repair it. Eventually, the fabric was so thin it just fell apart. They hid it from him, and told him that Gator had grown up and gone to live with the other gators. He was so inconsolable, they eventually found a slightly larger alligator that was green, and gave it to him. They told him that Gator had been living in the sewers with his friends, and it turned him green. He finally outgrew the second gator a couple of years later. I left Cookie Monster at a car dealership when I was 4. My dad drove back and they'd strapped him into the car on the rotary in the showroom. A year later I was fairly reliable about not losing things and was given another who looked identical who was on deck from a year before. Will be 35 years in a month or two, still have them both. I could not understand how all the death scenes in war movies seemed so realistic. So, I asked one of my older brothers how they did it. He proceeded to tell me that they empty out state prisons in the area the movie is being made, dress them up and give them guns and tell them that if they survive the filming then they get to leave jail after. I was told that at around 7 and I believed it till I was around 10. Lol, when I asked, my dad just told me that they were paid. He meant that they were just actors and it wasn't real. My 4-year-old self just thought that they were stupid since no one would have to pay them once they were dead anyway. That our entire house was covered by cork-sized security cameras and that my parents could see my every move. My kid has convinced herself of the same thing and always randomly asks, "What am I doing right now?" from across the house. My mom convinced us she had eyes in the back of her head. She could tell us what we were doing in the living room while working in the kitchen facing away from us. We'd test it even further by doing the "how many fingers am I holding up?" test and she'd get it right every time. So all little kid evidence concluded that mom did in fact have eyes in the back of her head. It wasn't until I was much older that I randomly noticed the crystal clear reflection in the kitchen window my mom could always see. My father was a fish taxidermist and had a bunch of glass eyes for them. He told us he had eyes in the back of his head and lifted his hair to show us. Also, I ate a dog biscuit one time, one of those that humans can eat too, and he drew a red dot right on my tailbone when I was sleeping and told me I was going to turn into a dog. Traumatized me for 8 years. In case you still get the cravings, by law, all pet food treats have to be safe for human consumption in the event of a child or elderly person, or I guess anyone else, eating them whether accidentally or otherwise. In the US anyways, can't vouch for other countries. Edited for some links for the perusal of those interested. Link 1, link 2. Also, just because it's the law doesn't mean every piece of pet food is guaranteed to be safe. Don't go eating a bunch of pet food and come after me if you get sick. As a kid I had a strangulated hernia, which left me with one testicle. My dad told me if I ever had kids they would be all boys or all girls cause each testicle is for each sex. Believed it for years. I'm wondering if your dad actually believes that. My dad won't drink water because he says it rests your stomach. So, I used to joke that I didn't want to work out because I only had a certain amount of heartbeats and didn't want to use them all up working out. It was funny till I found out people believe this. Some even make it to the upper echelons of politics. My sister told me that if you count all the stones of Stonehenge you will die. I still don't know how many stones there are in Stonehenge. Edit, I just called and told this to my sister. And she just laughed for about 2 minutes. I'll count them for you. There are. That women's period stop in water to avoid sharks smelling it. LMFAO what? It's an evolutionary adaptation. My older brother pranked me once. I had watched a kids' TV show, I think it was The Electric Company, that featured a guest star who was a tap dancer. My brother convinced me that tap dancers made their tapping sounds, not with their feet, but with their mouths. I spent the next several weeks trying to tap dance with my mouth noises before my mom made me quit. I'm surprised she lasted that long, tbh. My 5-year-old son is currently on a death metal voice kick. While I generally like metal, and it's kind of adorable, I'm going to get sick of him screaming at the top of his lungs really quick. You can only be yelled at Cheerios and milk please so many times. I now want to see an episode of Death Metal Sesame Street. C is for cookie that's good enough for me. That the draining sound of the water in the bathtub was a monster that would suck you in as well. A lie made to get me out of the bath. I stuck my finger down the plug hole thinking the swirling vortex it made would spin me around like some miniature tornado. Yeah. The fireman who cut me out of the bath didn't laugh either. Okay, but did you spin? I did. Got a lovely scar for my troubles though. So win-win I guess. When I was a kid I asked my dad if reading enough books really could give you telekinesis. Matilda, he said yes. I spent many years after that thinking I just wasn't doing enough. A good way to get your kids to read I guess. My mom used to tell me birds have wings and can fly because they eat a lot of fruits and veggies. I wanted to fly, instead just ended up with healthy eating habits. She Pavloved me real good. When I was a little fellow my parents used to told me when you smoke you'll die instantaneously. Unfortunately they forgot this at a campfire organized by our former neighborhood and smoked a cig. I remember I was desperately trying to stop them and cried all the time, because I thought they're both about to die. See, you just misunderstood. You will die instantly, not them. Yeah, one doesn't simply smoke a cig. You must first sip it over the course of a month to build up a tolerance, everyone knows that. If you swallowed the black watermelon seeds a watermelon would grow in your belly. That the hazard button in a car would blow the car up. Holy shit, I'm not the only one. It's such a scary symbol for a kid, only to find out it just makes the lights blink lol. My mom told me this so I just pressed the button to spite her. I'm sorry, honey, you need to do homework tonight instead of going to Joey's sleepover, oh yeah? Blows up car doesn't blow up. Parent who told the lie in the first place takes note, little Timmy will murder you for the slightest of inconveniences even at the cost of his own life, interesting. My grandmother told me that pinching gave cancer. I got pinched once at recess and yelled at the person because I thought they were going to give me cancer. My mother told me basically everything she did not want me to have caused cancer. Salt, cancer. Maraschino cherries, cancer. Anything with any sort of food coloring in it, cancer. Soda, cancer. Spending too much time on TV, computer video games, cancer. Now pinching fell under things she didn't physically want me doing. Those didn't give you cancer, they gave you blood clots. The button on your armrest on airplanes is the eject button. I found out it reclines your seat embarrassingly late. When I was a kid my dad always told me not to touch it because it was an emergency button. One time when I was like 5 we were flying to visit family and he fell asleep so I pressed it a bunch because I was curious. Nothing happened and I fell asleep thinking it must be broken. I woke up in a stroller with my parents upset because the plane had to make an emergency landing and I started crying because I thought it was my fault. When I was a kid my dad told me it cost 25 cents to change the radio station to keep me from ducking with the radio in his car. I believed that until I was 14. Don't give strange ideas to some radio or TV broadcaster. Well, my grandpa and I went to Forest when I was around 12 years old and one of my cousin came with us too. He was 16 that time and told me that a creature lives in the woods which has male and female genital organs. When it is nighttime it gets out and ducks whatever living thing he grabs. OFC, I didn't believe my cousin. I am not that dumb, but when my grandpa seconds him I cried like a little baby to go home. Rip grandpa, you crazy old fuck. My grandpa had a glass eye, and would pull it out and put it on the table to keep an eye on us, ha ha. I miss that man.